Welcome back to another episode of Limbus Company, Patch Note Analysis, and New Identity Overview. This week, we've of course got an Ego and an ID, being Asymmetrical Inertia Heathcliff and Devat Sinclair, and on top of that, we're getting Mirror Dungeon 5 this week, so we've got a lot of information covering regarding that. So let's just get straight into it, shall we? Starting, as we often do, with the Ego, Asymmetrical Inertia Heathcliff.
균형을 잃은 게 아니야. 더 세게 후려치려고 기우뚱거린 거지. 할 수 있었잖아. 내가 이렇게 무너지기 전에.
This is a Tremor Ego, as you could probably guess beforehand. They made it sloth-like. It's standard Tremor Ego stuff for Oofy's Heathcliff's sake. And it's also a bit of a first as far as Tremor goes for us, because it's got a fairly unique amplitude conversion to it. This is the first time we are getting our own self-Tremor conversion. With Tremor Clock Binding, you gain max speed, and you can consume Tremor Count on self to get even more Tremor potency and count infliction with this unit's skill or coin effects, including Ego or counter skills. So you basically can just use this Tremor type to just get max speed so you go faster, so you can set up Tremor on enemies, right? Now, this isn't the first self-Tremor amplitude conversion in the game, because the Eurodivier enemies in Time Killing Time had Tremor, what was it? Tremor Distribution, I think. Yeah, Tremor Distribution, which gave them, like, defense level up based on allies' Tremor or something like that. I don't know. Our Eurodivier IDs don't have that, so this is the first time we're actually getting it. And, of course, as you can see, you get it for simply just using the Ego skill. Asymmetrical Inertia Awakening is a 2-coin Blunt Sloth skill. Before attack, gain X plus highest resonance Tremor count, and instead of resonance with a Sloth resonance, then you trigger amplitude conversion on Tremor on self into Tremor Clock Binding. There's no absolute resonance requirement, which is interesting. A lot of times you'll see Ego like this with some sort of benefit for absolute resonance. No benefit for absolute resonance on this Ego's like Awakening at all, right? It just wants a high sloth resonance, not absolute, so it doesn't even need to be in a row. So that's good for just a little bit of like flexibility. Tremor can definitely use like a nice sloth turn every once in a while, because like stuff like Everlasting gets a stupid amount of Tremor infliction based on sloth resonance. Stuff like, I don't know, there's some other random things for like various Egos and whatnot that you could benefit from. And if you just like pop this Ego whenever you want a Sloth Resonance turn, especially since Oofy Heathcliff doesn't have any Sloth skills of his own, that's pretty nice. On hit, inflict Tremor count, inflict Tremor, and on tails hit, inflict Tremor count. Very interesting, that's for sure, because heads hit you get potency, tails hit you get count, and also a little bit of count by baseline. Very interesting. Yeah, like, it's just kind of like a roll, right? Assuming this is going to be a positive coin, it's going to cost like a normal, like, 20-25-ish sanity, something along those lines. It means chances are you're going to get the potency, but if you do get that tails, you get the count instead. Very interesting. It feels like a much less threatening version of, like, Soup Claire's, you know, heads, tails, like, differences. That's interesting. And then second coin, trigger Tremor Burst, reduce target's Tremor count, and also inflict Sloth Fragility this turn. And if this was a good Sloth Resonance, you get even more Sloth Fragility, which is very interesting, that's for sure. Sloth Fragility, as far as I'm aware, does not interact Tremor Reverb, because, well, Tremor Reverb is like already like straight up damage. It's not like physical damage, right? It's like direct damage, so it doesn't get applied by like fragility and stuff like that. But it means that just your sloth skills in general, if you're going for big sloth resonance turn, will just do a bunch more damage, which is cool. And since Tremor Clock Binding gains more max speed, if you use this Ego and then you keep on using this Ego, you'll keep on gaining more Tremor count on self, and you should also be decently fast so you can get the sloth resonance early, which kind of gives you a different reason entirely to use Oofy Heathcliff, which seems nice. Now the Corrosion is fairly similar, right? Highest resonance Tremor count. It's also a 2-coin Sloth Blunt skill, amplitude conversion on self on a Sloth Resonance. First coin's like the exact same, even like the heads to tails hit. The numbers might be different, we don't know. And the second coin is 2 Tremor Bursts instead of just 1. And I think the fact that it's 2 Tremor Bursts is literally the only difference we can tell, right? It's literally just there's only 1 line difference between Awakening and Corrosion, which is funny. The numbers are probably different, that sort of thing. It's probably a negative coin, that sort of thing. So, like, if you use this one, you're more likely to get the Tremor count than since the Tails hit is the Tremor count. That sort of thing, right? But then on top of all that, the Ego passive, Broken Bell, works very similarly to the Bell from Mirror Dungeon, right? Inflict fragile this turn on enemies who are hit by Tremor from skill, coin, or passive effects. Does not stack with Ego gifts that inflict fragile upon triggering Tremor Burst. So yeah, it's effectively Bell, but it does not stack with Bell, which is very funny. Don't know if we've ever had a situation where, like, an actual, like, Ego itself has mentioned Ego gifts whatsoever. Like, I think this is the first time we've gotten anything in the game that has some sort of direct, like, relationship with an Ego gift. Normally it's never anything like that. Which is, very interesting. But yeah. It means that you can get, like, a weaker, like, Bell effect even in normal fights, though, which seems like a pretty solid thing. It also doesn't specify that it needs to be hit by, like, Heathcliff himself's Tremor Burst. I'm not sure if it means on any... If it does mean, like, on anyone, which I think is what it means, then that's pretty strong that you can get this off in normal fights and stuff. Overall, seems like a cool Ego. Heathcliff Heaslot isn't, like, a super contested one. Like, Yastina is real nice for sanity healing for allies, and, like, Telepole Corrosion can be real funny for funny damage, but not the biggest deal. So I think this is going to be a pretty solid Ego overall. We'll have to see how some of the numbers turn out, and Tremor really doesn't need more setup, but it can be appreciated, especially in normal fights, right? Just to make sure you can get, like, the conditionals going. Especially if someone can get like, good Tremor count infliction is really nice, because then you pair it with Everlasting, you've got better chances to get that count burst additional thing, right? Yeah, seems pretty cool. I like it a lot. That's enough of that, though, because we got to take a look at the 3-star as well. Devat Sinclair.
이건 이거랑 묶어서 같이 배송하고 경로 확인한 다음에 이번 집화 처리는 왜 이렇게 복잡한 거예요? 대부분의 위기 상황은 플루드 입체가 출력 제한을 해제해주면 이겨낼 수 있지만 그럼 대박이가 한 푼도 안 남기도 하고 무엇보다 제 수명이 남아나지 않아서요. 주문하신 상품을 예정된 시간보다 일찍 배송할 수 있겠네요. 의뢰인분이 좋아하시겠어요.
If you, like me, thought this guy was going to be, like, potentially, like, the savior of Rupture or anything, couldn't be further from the truth. Yeah, he does not seem very good for Rupture. He's definitely interesting what he's going for here. He's a little bit of a debuffer, that's for sure. And I'm not sure how good he's going to be at it. I'm kind of doubtful. First things first, let's look at his unique status effects. He's a 2-page identity, but it's basically almost identical to Courier Trunk and Strategic R&R mode from Rodion. In fact, the Strategic R&R mode, I did check, is word for word exactly the same as Rodion, so it'll work the exact same most likely. Courier Trunk Sinclair is different from Rodion, but only in 2 ways. Sinclair's is blunt damage up instead of slash damage up, since, you know, they use different damage types. And the only other thing is that where it's at the bottom where it says on skill use take stack divided by X% HP, on Rodion it's stack divided by Y for both HP, or for both skill use and on turn end, which is a very weird thing since I don't know why that is. I don't know if that's anything to actually... I mean, some of those numbers might be slightly different on Sinclair is what I'm getting at, right? But otherwise, it's going to be the exact same. Almost certainly, right? They're basically the same thing. The only main difference is blunt damage up versus slash damage up. Just wanted to get that out of the way in case you were curious. Moving on to his actual skills. Courier Trunk Decay Hammer, 2-coin blunt lust skill. His sin affinities are pretty similar to Rodion's. The only difference being the skill 2 and skill 3 sin affinities have been flip-flopped. But yeah, gain coin power based on Courier Trunk Sinclair on self or Rupture on the target. If the target has a certain amount of Rupture, does not inflict Rupture count with its on-hit effects. Instead, it inflicts defense level down. This is very interesting. Unlike, you know, Rodion, whose entire thing is it makes it her, like, Rupture neutral. It makes him Rupture negative, and in exchange he just can inflict some defense level down. Which is interesting. I think it makes sense for like their entire gimmick, because Devat are supposed to be pretty fast, right? They're supposed to be fast, so defense level down, same turn stuff is really nice on Devat since they're fast. But once again, we're getting to the same problem where, like, how are you going to maintain Rupture? He doesn't have like any like super insane coin numbers since he's like 233, right? So like that's beneficial at least, but we don't have enough of a way to manage count to really make that seem super beneficial, right? But yeah, first coin, gain Courier Trunk Sinclair, gain more at a low amount, and the second coin, inflict Rupture count, and additional Rupture count at high Courier Trunk. Simple enough stuff. The Rupture count is going to be changed to a defense level down. I assume, is it 1-to-1, assumably? That's my guess. Like, if it's like a 2 Rupture count inflictor, it probably changes to 2 defense level down, I guess. That's what I assume. Skill 2, Courier Trunk Demolition Gadget, 3 coin Blunt Gluttony skill, coin power based on Courier Trunk on self or Rupture on target. It is I kind of skipped over in the first skill, but definitely a very interesting conditional since, well, you've got a choice whether or not he's got high Courier Trunk from just being around for a certain amount of turns, or if you already have decent Rupture on the target, you can gain coin power, which is nice. Once again, does not inflict Rupture count, instead defense level down. Gain haste next turn at a certain amount of Courier Trunk. I'm pretty sure that's like identical to Rodion stuff, right? Like haste on skill 2 at high Courier Trunk. I'm pretty sure that's what she does. Gain Courier Trunk on hit, gain additional low numbers, and then both coin 2 and coin 3 inflict Rupture and Rupture count at high Courier Trunk. Assuming I am right about how the defense level down goes, this is like at least 4 defense level down, probably more because some of those Rupture potency ones are probably higher. It can potentially be like a good defense level down setupper, but the enemy needs to have high Rupture and you need to be willing to burst that Rupture down with this guy, so I don't know. Finally, skill 3. 3 coin Wrath Blunt skill, coin power based on Courier Trunk on self or Rupture on target, does not inflict Rupture count with its on hit effects at high Rupture, instead raises final coin power, and the target has a certain amount of Rupture, final coin deals more damage based on Courier Trunk Sinclair, so you just get a big, like, unga bunga final hit based on how much Rupture on target and coin and like Courier Trunk and stuff. First coin, Rupture count, additional Rupture count based on Courier Trunk. Second coin, Rupture potency, additional Rupture potency based on Courier Trunk. And finally, third coin, if the skill's effect to raise the total coin power did not activate, aka if you did not have enough to read the Rupture conditional, gain haste next turn. So even if you use it without the conditional, you get a little bit of haste so you can go faster in the future. I think that part's an interesting thing, right? Like, the entire thing is you set up some Rupture with this, they might be able to meet the conditional next turn, you'll get haste next turn, so you should be able to go first and get the defense level down stacking. It just doesn't mesh well with, like, what we have for Rupture at all. And since all the defense level stuff requires Rupture conditionals, right? So this isn't, like, a case of, like, oh, just don't run him on Rupture, he's, like, a good, like, all-arounder, too, like you can say about Devat Rodion, right? This defense level down thing only works with Rupture. Very weird. Can't imagine this guy's going to be too much better than just using Red Sheet Sinclair for Rupture stuff. His defense skill, 2 coin counter, it's a Blunt Gluttony, and at a certain amount of Courier Trunk, assumably 15, you use your Retreat instead. And if the skill to be activated at combat start, gain Courier Trunk percent of the unit's max HP as a shield. Pretty nice. And then, of course, Strategic R&R mode, it's a 2 coin Blunt counter, the Gluttony. Same thing as, you know, you'd expect, right? It's like the normal counter, but it just makes you retreat as well. Which is simple enough. Passive, I'll do better next time. When after retreating with Strategic R&R mode, unit returns the battle, have the Courier Trunk Sinclair value. This is the same thing that Rodion had, right? Where, like, the first time you retreat, you have your Courier Trunk when you come back in, so you're not instantly dead. We don't know if it'll be the exact same. Assumably it will be, but who knows. Now, as far as his normal passive goes, a moment please. Turn start at high amount of speed. If the unit has haste, gain Courier Trunk percent of your max HP as shield, same as Rodion. Upon retreat, clash power up to 2 allies next turn, same as Rodion. And last more turns based on Courier Trunk Sinclair on self, same as Rodion. I don't know. Feels like he's trying to be. He's definitely very similar to Rodion, as you expect from somebody who's from the same like association, but kind of so similar, and his differences seem to make him not particularly better. Then support passive, speedy courier, and its best speed hits enemy with ruptured, like defense level down and hit. It's not going to beat Talismans. Unfortunately, I don't know, he might be a decent all-arounder. Depending on his numbers goes, he could definitely be good. But I feel like I say this for every Rupture unit we get recently. It's not going to be good unless we get IDs that can stack Rupture faster, right? He bursts down Rupture far too fast for you to be able to manage it outside of, like, Mirror Dungeon. And if you're talking Mirror Dungeon, you can run, like, whatever for Rupture because, like, Chicken Breast is so insanely strong. Overall, I'm not fully sure. It's nice to have another retreat unit so you can kind of do like the whole thing where you just kind of alternate them retreating, just see how it goes. Keep on stacking the clash power up for allies, I guess. Although it will always prioritize each other, and if they're just going to retreat, they won't get much mileage out of it. But either way, it's cool to get another retreat ID, even if I'm not sure how good he's going to be in function. Moving on, though, we do have a lot of patch notes to cover because Mirror of the Dreamin' coming out this week. New Mirror Dungeon. And it's got definitely a couple interesting changes, that's for sure, so let's get into it. It's going to be releasing this week, yeah, clear main story 2-19, as per usual, you just need to have cleared Kanto 2 to get access to it. Notes, Mirror Dungeon 4 will be closed, normal difficulty is they're calling it normal and hard again instead of Simulation and Ritornello. Makes sense because Simulation and Ritornello was kind of like thematic for like Kanto 4 to a degree, right? Because it's like, because Ritornello is like a music thing, like violin, I think, usually? I actually don't know. I don't know. No difficulty balance if certain enemies are even maybe just in the process. And hard difficulties we're going to be getting next week, so we're not going to get that quite yet. Skeletal missions last a normal time. However, it does say that Daily Mirror, the Mirror Dungeon weekly bonus will be reset. So if you can do a hard run before the update comes out, but after the after the weekly reset, you will be able to get like another free like Mirror Dungeon hard run in and get like another set of rewards. So just keep that in mind. Something you might want to do beforehand in order to get a lot of mileage from that. Major changes. Now they're kind of doing away with Starlight in exchange for Grace of Stars, which is like the big thing here. Where basically, depending on like how big of your like team's like rest bonuses and that sort of stuff, you can just choose a couple buffs to go in with, right? Every combat encounter has been converted to chain battles, as you'd expect. Most combat encounters have any backup unit substituting in as well. So now there's going to be a lot more fights where then there's like a fair bit of enemies in the back as well, but in order to make up for it, there's less fights per floor, which makes sense. Upon clearing a floor, all entities will be revived and fully healed. SP of revived allies is reset to 0, but SP of people who don't die just stay the same, right? And final floor difficult of normal is 5, right? So they're going to be making 5 floors again. They tried this last Mirror Dungeon. They were like, oh, let's try making normal 5 floors again, see how people feel about it. People didn't really like it, that sort of thing. So yeah. We'll see how that goes this time, especially if they're going to make if there's a lot more longer fights, even if there's less fights of them. Definitely might be bad, especially initially. Creating your team, identity levels are fixed to 50 in normal mode, of course. Hard, it's going to be like the same thing where you use the actual levels. Rest bonus systems being changed. Now, instead of being a Starlight gain, you can consume rest bonuses like Grace of Stars. You no longer gain starting costs based on selected identities, so you only gain rest bonus Grace of Stars stuff based on your ID choice. You no longer gain like additional starting costs and that sort of thing. Also, nice thing that they're doing this time, with the Mirror Dungeon 5 update, all identities will gain maximum rest bonus value. Instead of everyone starting out at 0, everyone will start out at max. Which is a good change, that's for sure. Also interesting, an identity can have up to 5 rest bonuses, down from 6. So now there's a little bit less, so you don't need to do as much like team cycling if you don't want to. You can only switch between 5 instead of needing to do 6, right? Something like that. Yeah. Grace of the Dreaming Star. We can't really see what those do, but like it looks like your options are like +1 floor pack, +1 floor pack reroll, +1 ego gift, selection at the start, assumably, something like that. That's what it looks like from those 3. But I don't know if it's all. I assume it'll always be the same or something. I'm not sure which of those would be the best. Then it depends on what you're going for, but if so, seems nice, right? This way, the intent here is just saying, like, the main purpose of this is instead of making Mirror Dungeons feel, like, rough when you don't have the Starlight stuff, they figure, let's just do away with Starlight instead, just make it so you gain various benefits. So, there's not really going to be anything, no insane, like, Starlight grind this time around, and Starlight just does not exist, which is interesting, that's for sure. Not sure how that's going to go. Only a single rare stars can be selected at a time. Any remaining rest bonus will be proportionally converted to cost. So you do gain a little bit of cost based on how much rest bonus you don't spend, right? So that's nice. Starting EU gifts, they look exactly the same. They've done away with Slash, Pierce, and Blunt, which makes sense. You'd rarely ever went for them. They haven't really leaned into them enough to really warrant it. It is a shame for a couple people, though, because that means she can't start with Resolution, or, like, if you're doing, like, I know if you're doing an ammo run, you can't start with Bandolier or stuff like that, right? They were like beneficial at times, but also not the biggest deal whatsoever. Also, it seems like they've done away with random based on this image. It's just the 7. You can't just choose random, which also makes sense because random wasn't really random. It just chose one of the other ones for you, and then you were like locked into that one for the rest of the run, where it would just keep on prioritizing giving you EO gifts of that type. I don't know. Selecting theme packs. Once again, it's like the same thing as before. Looking at, like, nothing seems super strange looking at that image there. It all seems fairly normal. Change the difficulty of theme pack by pressing the difficulty target button in the top right, so you can change the hard at any time you want. All of that's coming next week, so no big issue here. They're adjusting certain floor packs to fit better thematically and stuff like that. Probably means we'll see some various, like, new abnos on certain floors, though, right? Like, we'll probably, like, see, like, I don't know if we're gonna get, like, King of Binds, but if we do, we'd probably see him on, like, the sinking hard floor, right? Something like that. Add in, remove someone else, or maybe just keep whoever else is there, 4 people instead of that. Can't really tell us that much in the image. Major changes. Abnormality battle encounters added to the game. Now there's random events on the floor that are specifically abnormality battles, and they'll just function like whenever you fight abnormalities at an event, right? They'll have less HP, but you'll get both EO gifts from them, so it can be nice to go for if you want to take those fights for additional EO gifts. Shops and rest stops have been fused together, so it's now it's now just one thing, right? Which is good, and now there's one every floor right before the boss. So it's a lot more consistent instead of being like kind of like the weird pattern of that we're so used to by now. You can now heal as many times as you want as long as you've got the cost for it, instead of just being once per thing. Starlight Refresh is gone since Starlight's gone, which makes sense, right? And they're changing some stuff about fusion, so you can actually fuse tier 4 plus ego gifts, although there's not really too big of a reason yet, but it just does make sense for some of the changes they're going to be making next week too. That sort of thing. Encounter reward cards are mostly the same, but there's no longer Starlight ones. Mounting trials are getting major changes here and there, major adjustments. And EO gifts, we're getting more ego gifts. You can now gain duplicate ego gifts is a big thing. These duplicate ego gifts do not stack in effects, but you can like sell or fuse the duplicate just to get rid of it, right? It makes it so you like can't like kind of manipulate the system by getting the EO gifts that you don't want, so you're guaranteed to get the ones you do want, that sort of thing. Which makes sense. 18 new EO gifts being added to the game with normal update. They're going to be adding a bunch more with hard mode. Also, I want to point out the fact, of the 4 we can see up there, just saying that leftmost one looks an awful lot like a cauldron. Might be Bacillus Soup finally getting an event soon. Maybe I'm coping, but I think it might be Bacillus Soup's time to shine. That looks too much like a soup cauldron, if I've ever seen a soup cauldron, which I don't know if I've seen a soup cauldron, but similar enough things. Yeah, 9 previous EO gifts effectively adjusted or changed. The 7 fusion gifts are getting changed, but also Tomorrow's Fortune and Milepost Survival. Tomorrow's Fortune, I think, can only be changed if they were, like, getting rid of its effect entirely? I'm not sure what else they could change. I do wonder if that means Tomorrow's Fortune is... because Tomorrow's Fortune is the one that gives you the additional option from floor clear rewards and, like, various things like that. They might be changing that entirely then. And Milepost of Survival, I don't know what they're going to change about that. Maybe just make it different. No clue. Right, it's Milepost of Survival, but Tomorrow's Fortune might be getting like a big nerf. And also EGO fusion recipes are being changed because they're doing some weird stuff with fusion. So just keep that in mind. Major changes, 6 previous choice events have the content adjusted or added. So we're not getting any new events until next week. But we're getting some changes to the ones we have right now, that sort of thing. Exploration complete screen is a little bit different. You receive rewards based on your normal rated in progress and difficulty of each floor. But only normal is supported in this update, so... assumably if you run like full hard, you'll get like more rewards. If you run like a mixture of both, you'll get like kind of in between, right? Stuff like that, yeah. Who knows? I don't know if it'll change like the amount you can get per run, though. I'm not sure if like a full hard run without any bonuses will be any better. It probably is like a bonus thing once again, but who can say? That's all for those patch notes, though, but we've still got the general patch notes to go through. Pretty standard stuff. New content. It's just the new content. Target Extraction Otis. I think we already knew about that, because I think they showed it off in, like... what was it? I don't remember. They showed it off last week, I want to say, though, right? I don't know. Starting with this Sinner Target section, event attendees and Ego except event rewards from the season immediately preceding this one will be available from Sinner Target Extraction. Yeah, sure. New identity and Ego added. Of course, it's just Inertia Heathcliff and Devat Sinclair and Mirror the Dreaming. Bunch of various bug fixes here and there. They renamed Rhodion's Career Trunk to Career Trunk Rhodion so you could differentiate them. Any other major things? I don't know. I think the major thing here is that they adjust the frame rate drop that occurs when fighting enemies with numerous parts and focus encounters, and frame rate drop in certain encounters. There have been some weird frame rate drops the past few weeks, so I think they finally fixed those. That's nice. Bunch more random bug fixes and improvements. Pocket Watch type L didn't activate pop properly. Interesting. Some other random things. Crush memory having issue. Some EU gifts were kind of weird. That sort of thing. But nothing too major all in all. Just a bunch of nice changes, barring like the frame rate thing. And of course, 300 lunacy. But that is all for the patch notes. I'm looking forward to Mirror Dungeon 5 a lot, although I won't be able to play it on launch. I'll probably stream on Saturday my like initial reactions and stuff, because that's the first time I'm going to be free to play, because I'm going to be away for Thanksgiving and that sort of thing. So yeah, look forward to that. But anyways, that'll be all for this time. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!